Welcome to the Disabled Podcast, starring your host, Christian Reitz.
Hot dog, let's go!
Welcome to the Disabled Podcast, the show that incorporates disabilities with the magic of Disney. Welcome to episode number 8, entitled The Walt Disney World Resorts, part number 1. Be sure to use our hashtag the Disabled Podcast when sharing this podcast to all social media platforms. Again, that's hashtag the Disabled Podcast when sharing this podcast to all social media platforms. And now, here is your host, Christian Reitz. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Disabled Podcast. So, if you've been following this podcast right here on YouTube long enough, then you'll know that over the last 4 episodes, we've been digging into the Disney theme parks and talking about what there is to do in each theme park, especially if you're disabled and use a wheelchair or an ECV. Well, today I want to start off this episode by asking you a very specific question. So, let's kind of trail back. Let's say you've had a great time spending the day with friends and family, experiencing all that the Disney theme parks has to offer, whether that be your favorite attractions, shows, parades, or even character sightings. So, let me ask you, now that all the fun has been had, where do you stay? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in these next 2 episodes of the Disabled Podcast. Now, this episode and the next episode, we will dive into the Walt Disney World Resort hotels. But first, as always, the latest in Disney theme park news. The Walt Disney World Resort is celebrating its 50th anniversary from October 1st and lasting through the next 18 months at all theme parks, resorts, and more. With so many new things to experience, this magical celebration is sure to be a hit with the entire family. So be sure to reserve your spot soon so you can jump in and all of the magic of the Walt Disney World 50th anniversary. Alright everyone, so let's dig right on into the Walt Disney World Resorts. Now, when booking your Walt Disney World vacation, it's important to decide if you will stay on property at the Walt Disney World Resort or if you're going to be staying off-site at another hotel that's outside of Disney. Now, if you're new to planning a Disney trip, then you might be wondering why it's even important to know if you want to stay on property or if you want to stay off property. Well, for those of you that might not know, if you're new to Disney resort planning, then you must know that there are actually some really cool perks to staying on property at Walt Disney World Resort versus staying off-site at some other hotel. And one of the biggest perks, that is one of the most popular perks that you get while staying at a Walt Disney World Resort, is early park admission. Now, with early park admission, what that basically means is that you get to enter the park to ride your favorite attractions 30 minutes before the park's officially open to other guests, and even on special occasions, you might even get to stay late after the parks have officially closed to all the other guests. So, before we can really dive in to talk about the Walt Disney World resorts, there are a few things you must know about all the resorts on property. One of which is that all the resorts are separated into a few different categories. Now, there are deluxe resorts, value resorts, moderate resorts, and villas. And there's a few others, but we're only going to take these 4. Now, all of these categories are separated by cost, room size, location to the various theme parks, amenities, and so much more. So in this week's episode, let's cover the deluxe resorts and the value resorts, and then in the second part of this episode that's going to be happening in the new year, we will discuss moderate resorts and villas. So what exactly is a deluxe resort, you might ask? Well, as deluxe resorts go, they are perfectly themed, housing the top tier restaurants found at Walt Disney World, and also the various gift shops, and these gift shops are like some of the best. So you'll find typically that these are a lot of the biggest gift shops, kind of like World of Disney, but like half the size of World of Disney. It's like a smaller version of World of Disney. The deluxe resorts are true resorts for many that offer things such as a spa, gym, or business center, and often with additional amenities only open to those resort guests. Now, you can also count on the movies on the lawn in the evening, often including s'mores or popcorn. Or in the case of the Beach Club Resort, you might even find that there's a Chip and Dale meet and greet. Now, prices at a deluxe resort will typically cost between $400 to $3,500 per night, depending on where you're staying. So, which resorts are considered a deluxe resort? Well, a few examples of a deluxe resort might be Disney's Contemporary Resort, which is located about 5 minutes away from the Magic Kingdom. And by the way, it also has a walking path for you to get to the front entrance of the Magic Kingdom. Now, other resorts include Disney's Polynesian Resort, Animal Kingdom Lodge, the Grand Floridian, the Swan Hotel, the Dolphin Hotel, and many more resorts for you to choose from in the deluxe resort category. Those are just a few of the resorts that are in that category, but there's so many more you can choose from. But those are the ones that I have personally done some research on. And if you want more research, you can go on to Disney's website, and they will have all the information you need for all these resorts. Now, transportation to and from these resorts are the monorail, the resort buses, and even some walking trails. And by the way, if you want more information on transportation options, you can go check out the Walt Disney World website, or you can go check out episode 3 of the Disabled podcast right here on YouTube to learn a little bit about the transportation options that Walt Disney World has to offer to and from the resorts, the Disney theme parks, and Disney Springs. So now let's talk about the value resorts. So what is the definition of a value resort? Well, the value resorts at Walt Disney World are exactly like they sound. Now, the cost of the value resorts are typically the cheapest, ranging from $100 to $400 per night. Now, one of the primary things to consider when choosing these resorts is that everybody chooses these resorts. I mean, everyone wants to go to Disney in a cheap way. And they have the largest set of buses for that reason. And basically what that means is that these resorts will host schools, organizations like the beauty pageant, toddlers and cheerleaders, and football teams. And it's actually closest to the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex. Now, these resorts are busiest during tournament season, so you want to be careful and kind of look at schedules, and if you're near a school that might be doing a Disney thing, you want to see when tournaments are happening. And I'm sure you can go on school websites and see kind of what's going on with that, but I do not know that for sure. Now, needless to say, the sound, atmosphere, and chaos is more at these resorts, but other than that, the rooms are just as nice. The buses are just as frequent, although they are packed. And the cafeteria offers some pretty decent food. In fact, the All-Star Movies has some of the best food, so you're not missing out on going cheaper. Now, overall, it's a very Disney experience, and really, it's a lot to take in if you were hoping for a relaxing vacation. But if you weren't going for relaxing and you're one of those people that's on the go, then these are perfect for you. Now, you do, however, still get all the resort amenities like laundry, pools, food court, arcade, gift shop, movies on the lawn, and kids programming to keep the kids and teens occupied throughout the day. Now, the transportation that's mostly offered to and from these resorts, the theme parks, or Disney Springs is the resort buses. And again, to learn more about the individual transportation options, you can go to the Walt Disney World Resort website or check out episode 3 of this podcast to learn more. Now, for those of you that are in wheelchairs, when searching for an available resort on www.disney.go.com, you will have the option of filtering the resorts by actually filtering out. There's a place on the website where it says accessible rooms. So when you book your Walt Disney World vacation online, you just gotta hit the check mark that says accessible rooms for your selected dates at your resort hotel that you want to stay at. Now, the disabled rooms have such accommodations like a larger room size, accessible bathroom, and typically they are the closest to the elevators if you're staying on the upper levels of your Disney resort. Now, again, as I keep mentioning in every podcast, for any information, you can go to www.disney.go.com to get more info on the theme parks, resorts, and so much more. Well, that's it for part 1 of the Disney Resort Hotels. Be sure to check out the next episode of the Disabled podcast when it releases in the new year. Oh, and by the way, coming soon is episode 10, where we are going to have our very first video podcast. So be sure that you are subscribed and have your notification bell turned on so you don't miss this very special episode. Well, that's all the time I have for this episode of the Disabled podcast. Have an amazing day, everybody, and we'll see ya
Real soon.